Hey, how's it going? It's Sean Bradshaw from cyberfret.com, and in this lesson I'm going to show you that chord progression that I was just playing and some cool chords that go along with it. And really, it's just a more interesting way to play some really basic chords. And so what you're going to find is if you're a songwriter, you're welcome to steal this thing in its entirety. You cannot copyright chord progressions. But what I want you to do is get the idea of how I'm taking some basic chords and just making them a little bit more interesting. So let's first of all take a look at the chords that are going on here. I have a D chord. That's a basic chord. But then the second chord that I go to here is going to be a G major 7 / B chord. Say that 3 times fast. All right. And basically, it's just a fancier version of a G chord. I'm going to play that whole chord progression in a minute just using some basic chords, and you'll see it's kind of dull that way. But the idea here is going from this D chord, I'm just going to go ahead and keep my second and third fingers down on the first and second strings and just move my first finger down to the 5th string at the 2nd fret. And I'm going to kind of mute out my 6th string because I don't want to hear that, so I'm going to kind of take my first finger here and extend up a little bit, what I call the finger extension mute, and touch that 6th string so that I don't have to worry about trying to only hit 5 strings. I can just hit all 6 strings. And so it's a G major 7 / B because B is the lowest sounding note in this. Then I'm going to, the first and second strings are going to remain consistent, but I have to use different fingers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking my second finger and putting it on the 5th string at the 3rd fret and moving my first finger to the 1st string at the 2nd fret. Okay? These two notes are still the same. And that's what's going to happen throughout this is those two remain consistent in almost all the chords, which kind of gives it a little bit of glue, that you kind of have this consistent top 2 notes in all of these chords. But this particular chord is called a C sus2 with a sharp 11. It's just a fancier C major chord, all right? A little bit more interesting than just a basic C chord. And so that whole first part here where it's just D, G major 7 / B, and a C sus2 with a sharp 11 is just a D chord, G, and a C. And if I just did the basic chords, it's kind of boring. All right, well, I mean, there's plenty of songs that kind of do that, and just by kind of swapping out these kind of more interesting, at least to me, sounding chords, it just kind of takes a basic chord progression and kind of takes it to another level. And so you can kind of think of those first 8 measures that I play as kind of maybe a verse section for a song. And you can definitely play around with, you know, moving these chords around, changing them around, different orders. And then the next part is going to be an E minor 7 with an added 9, which is really the same fingering as our G major 7 with the B in the bass, except for this time I'm not muting the 6th string, and I'm actually playing that 6th string open. Okay, so I get kind of an E minor, fancier E minor sound. Then I'm going to go to another kind of slash chord. It's a D with an F sharp in the bass. And what I'm going to do is just play a basic D chord, reach my thumb around and play the 2nd fret of the 6th string to get that F sharp note in there. Okay, and then I'm going to go to a G major 7 which is just taking my second finger, putting on the G note on the 3rd fret of the 6th string. Third finger is on the 2nd string at the 3rd fret, and first finger is on that 1st string at the 2nd fret. Those same consistent notes that have been going on. Then I have an A sus4 with a 13. All right, these are not chords you can shout across to your buddy across the room. All right, and just realize that this is just kind of a fancier A sound. All right, and then I'm going to resolve to an A7 chord, and that's where I finally stop having that consistent top 2 strings. It's kind of gives your ear a little bit of a break. All right, so here is the entire kind of verse section again. And you might play that again as a second verse, and then here is the whole kind of chorus section or a bridge section that you could use. And that section, if I was just playing basic chords, would be like this. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I think, these little fancier chords just give a little bit more life to some chords that maybe have been used a little bit too much in a lot of different songs. Now I'm going to show you just a couple of ways that you can embellish those chords just a little bit. Add a little bit more life to those chords. So if you take a look at a basic D chord, kind of a way that you could embellish that is to let go of your second finger, which ends up giving you a D sus2 chord. Or I could add my pinky on the 3rd fret of the 1st string, which gives me a D sus4 chord. So or I could even take my 1st finger and kind of hammer on to the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. So, and kind of the next embellishments of these chords are going to kind of remain consistent to that, where we can use those set of notes to spice up the other chords. And while I gave you the names of the chords here, you know, the D sus2 and the D sus4, the next ones I just really want you to think of embellishment notes. Don't get hung up on the more complicated names. You're not really going to be thinking about these as individual chords, just as ways to embellish the chords. And so when we go to this G major 7/B chord, what I could do is I could let go of my 2nd finger and play the open 1st string, or I can put my pinky down and play the 3rd fret of the 1st string. So I could also get my 1st finger to hammer on there. All right. For the C sus2 with a sharp 11, again, I could get that 1st string open. I could also get the 3rd fret on the 1st string in there, and I could also do a little hammer on with my 2nd finger here. All right. So if you listen to kind of the first section, kind of what I'm calling the verse section, with a little bit of embellishment, and you don't have to go overboard. You don't have to throw in the kitchen sink, but just kind of listen to a few things that I do here. Just adds a little bit more spice to it. And for the, the kind of chorus section, again, you can do the same thing on our E minor 7 type chord. For the D/F sharp, G major 7, and even here for our A7 sus4 with a 13, and we'll just leave the A7 as is because we've done enough embellishment. All right. So it just gives you some ideas of ways that you can add even a little bit more life to these chords. All right, so play around with this. You do not have to use the same strum pattern that I'm using. You can use any number of different things. You can switch around the order of the chords and really make this your own, or steal it as is and use it in your own songs. Have a good one.